Some nights are born quiet and die in chaos. This is the story of a woman who walked through darkness to find truth, only to discover that some doors should never be knocked upon. What began as a desperate search for answers ended with 3 gunshots that shattered the silence of a small town forever. The hunter became the hunted, and the hunted became something far more dangerous. This is what happened when Maria Santos refused to let the night swallow her sister whole. The rain had stopped an hour ago, but the streets of Millbrook still glistened under the pale glow of streetlights. Maria Santos sat in her car outside the old factory district, gripping the steering wheel so tightly her knuckles had gone white. Her breath came in short, sharp bursts, fogging up the windshield in rhythmic clouds. She had been parked here for 20 minutes, staring at the building across the street, a converted warehouse with bars on the windows and a single dim light burning somewhere deep inside. This was where the trail had led her. 3 weeks of searching, 3 weeks of dead ends and whispered rumors, 3 weeks of police telling her there was nothing they could do. Her sister Carmen had been missing for 22 days, and every official channel had gone cold. But Maria had found something the police either missed or chose to ignore: a name, a location. And now, sitting in the darkness with rain-soaked pavement reflecting her headlights, she had a choice to make. She could turn around, go home, wait for the authorities to do their job, or she could get out of this car and knock on that door. Maria reached for the door handle, then stopped. Her phone sat in the cup holder, Carmen's last message still glowing on the screen. She had read it 1,000 times. Meeting someone about the job. Warehouse district. If I'm not back by midnight, something's wrong. That message had come through at 9:47 p.m. on January 15th. Carmen had never come home. The police had been sympathetic at first. A missing persons report was filed. They checked Carmen's apartment, spoke to her friends, reviewed security footage from nearby businesses, but Carmen was 26 years old. No history of mental illness. No evidence of foul play at her residence. As far as the system was concerned, she was an adult who had the right to disappear if she wanted to. The case went from active to cold in less than a week. But Maria knew her sister. Carmen texted her every day, sometimes multiple times. They shared an apartment until 6 months ago when Carmen got her own place. They had Sunday dinners together without fail. Carmen was studying to be a nurse, working part-time at a coffee shop to pay rent. She had goals, plans, a boyfriend who loved her. She would never just vanish. So Maria had done what the police wouldn't. She had retraced Carmen's steps that night. The job Carmen mentioned was for a catering position, or so Carmen had thought. She had found the posting on a local classifieds website, something about servers needed for private events, good pay, flexible hours. Maria had tracked down the posting, but it had been deleted. The email address Carmen had corresponded with bounced back, but Maria kept digging. She talked to other women who had responded to similar ads. Most had never heard back. 2 had gone to interviews at various locations around town, legitimate businesses during the day but empty at night. One woman, a college student named Becca, had gotten scared and left before meeting anyone. She told Maria the address where she was supposed to go. It was this warehouse. Maria had spent the past week watching the building. During the day, it looked abandoned. Broken windows on the upper floors, graffiti on the loading dock doors, weeds pushing through cracks in the parking lot. But at night, things changed. Twice she had seen cars pull up to the side entrance. Expensive cars, luxury sedans that had no business in this part of town. People got out. Always men, always alone, and were led inside by someone Maria couldn't quite see. They stayed for an hour, sometimes 2, then left the same way they came. Last night, Maria had followed one of the cars. It led her to the east side of Millbrook, to a gated community where houses started at $1 million. The man who had been at the warehouse parked in the driveway of a colonial-style mansion. Through her research later, Maria discovered he was a local businessman, owned 3 car dealerships, sat on the city council. His name was Richard Holloway, and he was married with 2 kids. So what was he doing in an abandoned warehouse in the factory district at 11 o'clock at night? Maria knew she should go to the police with this information. But she also knew how this town worked. Millbrook was small enough that everyone knew everyone, and the people with money had a way of making problems disappear. If Richard Holloway was involved in whatever was happening in that warehouse, going through official channels might just tip him off. Worse, it might put Carmen in more danger if she was still alive. That thought, the possibility that Carmen might still be alive, was what finally made Maria open the car door. She had to know. She had to try. Even if it was dangerous, even if it was stupid, she couldn't just sit here and do nothing. The night air was cold against her skin as she stepped out onto the wet pavement. She wore dark jeans, a black jacket, and running shoes. Her phone was in her pocket, already set to record audio. It wasn't much, but if something happened, at least there would be evidence. The warehouse loomed before her. 3 stories of red brick and broken dreams. The main entrance was chained shut, but she knew about the side door from her surveillance. That was where the men entered. That was where she needed to go. Maria's footsteps echoed too loudly as she crossed the empty street. Every shadow seemed to move, every sound amplified. She kept her breathing steady, her pace measured. Don't run. Don't look suspicious. Just a woman walking through her own neighborhood. The side of the building was darker, no streetlights reaching this far. Maria pulled out her phone and used the flashlight, keeping it pointed low. The door was there, just as she remembered, painted grey and covered in rust. There was a buzzer system next to it, old and weathered. Above the door, a security camera pointed down, its red light blinking in the darkness. She was being watched. Whoever was inside knew she was here. For a moment, Maria considered turning back. This was insane. She was a high school English teacher, not a detective. She had no weapon, no training, no backup. If the people inside this building were dangerous, and everything pointed to them being exactly that, she was walking into a trap. But then she thought of Carmen's smile, the way her sister laughed at stupid jokes. The time Carmen stayed up all night helping Maria grade papers when she had fallen behind. The plans they had made for Christmas just 2 months away. All the moments they hadn't shared yet. All the years that stretched out before them. Maria raised her hand and knocked on the door. 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo through the empty district. Her heart hammered in her chest as she waited. Seconds passed. Nothing happened. She knocked again, harder this time. Her fist struck the metal with enough force to send pain shooting through her knuckles. The sound reverberated through the night. A challenge thrown into the void. This time, she heard movement from inside. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approaching the door. A lock clicked. Then, another. The door began to open, just a crack, and Maria saw a man's face peer out at her. He was older, maybe 50, with graying hair and cold eyes that assessed her in a single glance. "We're closed," he said. His voice was rough, like gravel scraping against concrete. "I'm looking for my sister," Maria said, forcing her voice to stay steady. "Carmen Santos. She came here 3 weeks ago for a job interview. She never came home." The man's expression didn't change. "Don't know her. Wrong address." He started to close the door, but Maria put her foot in the gap. "Please, I know she was here. I know about the job posting. I know about the men who come here at night. I just want to find my sister." Something flickered in the man's eyes. Surprise, maybe? Or concern? He looked past her, scanning the empty street. "You alone?" "Yes." "You armed?" "No." He studied her for a long moment, and Maria could see him calculating, weighing options. Finally, he stepped back and pulled the door open wider. "You've got 30 seconds to convince me not to throw you out on your ass. Get inside." Maria hesitated. Every instinct screamed at her to run. But she had come this far. She stepped through the doorway, and the man closed the door behind her, locks clicking back into place with a finality that made her stomach drop. The interior was dimly lit by a single bulb hanging from the ceiling. They stood in a narrow hallway, with concrete walls and a floor stained with things Maria didn't want to identify. The smell hit her immediately, a mix of mold, cigarette smoke, and something chemical she couldn't place. Somewhere deeper in the building, she could hear music playing, muffled and distant. "Talk," the man said, crossing his arms over his chest. He was taller than Maria had realized, well over 6 feet, and built like someone who knew how to handle himself in a fight. Maria pulled out her phone and showed him a picture of Carmen. Her name is Carmen Santos. She's 26 years old. She responded to a job posting for catering work. The email told her to come to this address on January 15th at 10 p.m. She hasn't been seen since. The man glanced at the photo but said nothing. "I know what you're thinking," Maria continued, "that she probably just ran off or got into trouble somewhere else. But I know my sister. She wouldn't disappear without a word. And I know she came here because she texted me this address before she went missing. A lot of people come through here, the man said. We run a legitimate event planning business. If your sister interviewed and didn't get the job, that's not our problem. If she's not here, I'll leave. No police, no trouble. The man laughed, a harsh sound without humor. You think I'm stupid? You walk in here making accusations, and I'm just supposed to give you a tour? Get out. I'll pay you, Maria said desperately. I have savings. $5,000. Just let me look for 10 minutes. Not interested. 10,000. The man paused. His eyes narrowed. You don't have that kind of money. I can get it. Give me 2 days. Even if you could, what makes you think your sister's here? 'Cause I've been watching this building, Maria said. I've seen the cars. I know about Richard Holloway and the others. I know this isn't an event planning business. I don't care what you're really doing here. I just want my sister back. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop 10 degrees. The man's face hardened, and he took a step toward Maria. You've been watching us? I've been trying to find Carmen. You mentioned names. That was a mistake. I just want my sister, Maria repeated. But her voice had lost its strength. She could see in the man's eyes that she had said too much, revealed too much. Fear wrapped around her throat like a fist. The man reached into his jacket, and Maria's world narrowed to that single motion. She thought about running, but the door was locked. She thought about screaming, but who would hear? She had been so focused on finding Carmen that she hadn't considered what would happen if she actually got inside. But instead of a weapon, the man pulled out a phone. He dialed a number and waited. We have a situation, he said when someone answered. Woman asking questions about a girl from 3 weeks ago. Says she's been conducting surveillance. He listened for a moment. Yeah, she gave me a name. Holloway. Another pause. Understood. He ended the call and looked at Maria with something that might have been pity. You really should have gone to the cops. They wouldn't help. They would have done more than I can do for you now. Before Maria could respond, she heard new footsteps approaching from deeper in the building. Multiple people moving quickly. The music had stopped. Whatever was about to happen, her arrival had triggered something. 3 men emerged from the darkness of the hallway. They were younger than the man guarding the door, dressed in casual clothes that didn't hide the weapons holstered at their sides. They fanned out, surrounding Maria without a word. She goes to the office, one of them said. He had a scar running from his temple to his jaw, and his eyes were dead and cold. Boss wants to talk to her. The man who had let her in nodded. She's all yours. Maria's phone was still in her hand, still recording. She tried to think clearly through the panic rising in her chest. These men were armed. She was outnumbered, but they hadn't hurt her yet. That had to mean something. I'll go, she said. I'll talk to whoever's in charge, but I want to see my sister. That's all I want. Scarface grabbed her arm, his grip tight enough to bruise. You'll see what the boss wants you to see. Move. They led her down the hallway, through a door that opened into a larger space. The warehouse floor stretched out before her, mostly empty except for a few stacks of crates and some old furniture covered in tarps. But along the back wall, Maria could see a row of doors, each one numbered. Some had light seeping out from underneath. Some were silent and dark. Her mind raced. What was this place? What were those rooms being used for? They took her up a metal staircase to the second floor, where a series of offices overlooked the warehouse floor. The windows had been painted over, but Maria could see light coming from one of the rooms. That was where they were taking her. The door opened, and Maria was pushed inside. The office was surprisingly well furnished, with a desk, leather chairs, and even some artwork on the walls. Behind the desk sat a woman in her 40s, blonde hair pulled back in a tight bun, wearing a business suit that probably cost more than Maria's car. She looked up from a laptop and smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. Ms. Santos, the woman said. I'd been expecting you. Maria stood frozen in the doorway, her mind struggling to process what was happening. The woman behind the desk gestured to one of the leather chairs with a manicured hand. Please, sit down. We have much to discuss. The men who had brought her up remained by the door, blocking any chance of escape. Maria's legs felt weak, but she forced herself to walk forward and sit. Her phone was still in her jacket pocket, still recording, at least she hoped it was. That small piece of evidence might be the only thing standing between her and complete disappearance. You're wondering how I know your name, the woman said, folding her hands on the desk. It's simple, really. You've been parked outside our establishment for the better part of a week. Did you think we wouldn't notice? Did you think we don't have our own security measures? Where's my sister? The woman tilted her head, studying Maria like she was an interesting specimen under glass. Let me tell you something about your sister Maria. May I call you Maria? Carmen came here of her own free will. She responded to our advertisement. She interviewed for a position, and she accepted a job with our organization. That's a lie. Carmen would never work for whatever this is. Oh? The woman raised an eyebrow. And what exactly do you think this is? I don't know, Maria admitted. But I know it's not legal. I know men like Richard Holloway come here in the middle of the night. I know my sister disappeared after coming here. At the mention of Holloway's name, the woman's expression hardened slightly. Mr. Holloway is a valued client. His business is his own. As for legality, we operate a perfectly legitimate enterprise. We provide companionship services, high-end entertainment for discerning gentlemen. Everything is consensual. Everything is legal. The words hit Maria like a physical blow. You're saying Carmen is working as an escort? I'm saying she chose a profession that pays significantly better than serving coffee to ungrateful customers. She made a choice, Maria. Many young women do. No. Maria shook her head violently. You're lying. Carmen would have told me. We tell each other everything. Do you? The woman leaned back in her chair. Did Carmen tell you about her student loan debt? Over $80,000 and climbing. Did she tell you about the eviction notice she received 2 days before she came here? Did she tell you her boyfriend had drained her savings account and disappeared? No. I can see from your face that she didn't share these things with you. Maria felt like the floor was dropping out from under her. That's not possible. Carmen's boyfriend is Nathan. He's a graphic designer. They've been together for 2 years. Nathan cleaned out her bank account and moved to Seattle with another woman 3 weeks before Carmen came to us. Your sister was broke, desperate, and alone. We offered her a solution. She took it. The room seemed to spin. Could it be true? Had Carmen been in trouble and not told her? Maria thought back to their last few conversations. Carmen had seemed stressed, but Maria had assumed it was school and work. She never imagined it could be something this serious. Even if that's all true, Maria said, fighting to keep her voice steady, it doesn't explain why she hasn't contacted me. If she's working here, if she's okay, why wouldn't she at least send me a message? The woman sighed, as if dealing with a particularly slow child. Because she's ashamed, Maria. Because she knows what you would think. Because sometimes it's easier to cut ties and start fresh than to face the disappointment in the eyes of someone you love. I want to see her. Right now. If she's really here. If she's really okay, let me talk to her. That's not possible. Why not? Because Carmen isn't on the premises tonight. She's with a client. A regular who pays very well for her time. Rage flooded through Maria's veins, hot and furious. She stood up so quickly the chair scraped against the floor. You're telling me my sister is out there with some stranger, selling herself, and you expect me to just accept this? To walk away? The men by the door moved forward, hands going to their weapons, but the woman held up a hand to stop them. Sit down, Maria, please. Getting emotional won't help anyone. I don't care. I want my sister back. She doesn't want to come back. I can show you proof if you'd like. Carmen signed a contract with our organization. She receives regular compensation, far more than she would make at any legitimate job available to her. She has housing, security, health care. In many ways, we've given her a better life than the one she was living by turning her into a prostitute. The woman's eyes flashed with anger for the first time. Mind your language. Our girls provide companionship, conversation, entertainment. What they choose to do in their private time with clients is between consenting adults. We don't force anyone to do anything they don't want to do. I don't believe you. I don't particularly care what you believe. The woman stood up, matching Maria's posture. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this building. You're going to stop your surveillance. You're going to stop asking questions. And if you go to the police, you'll find that they're not as interested in your conspiracy theories as you might hope. You have cops on your payroll. I have friends throughout this community. People who understand that what we do here provides a valuable service. People who know that your sister and the other women who work for us are far safer under our protection than they would be on the streets or struggling in poverty. Maria's mind raced. She needed to get out of here, needed to regroup and figure out what to do next. But she couldn't leave without something, without any proof that Carmen was actually alive. "Show me the contract," Maria said. "If Carmen really signed something, show me her signature. Let me see proof that she chose this." The woman considered this for a moment, then walked to a filing cabinet in the corner. She pulled out a folder and removed a few pages, laying them on the desk. "See for yourself." Maria leaned forward and looked at the document. It was a standard employment contract, full of legal jargon and clauses. At the bottom, in what looked like Carmen's handwriting, was a signature. The date was January 15th, the night she disappeared. But something was wrong. Maria had seen Carmen's signature thousands of times. They had signed birthday cards together, lease agreements, family documents. Carmen always made a distinctive loop on the C of her last name. This signature had the loop, but it was slightly off, like someone had tried to copy it but not quite gotten it right. "This is a forgery," Maria said quietly. "Excuse me? This isn't Carmen's real signature." "It's close, but it's not right." "Which means she never signed this contract," "which means you're lying about everything." The temperature in the room changed instantly. The woman's pleasant facade cracked, revealing something cold and dangerous underneath. "You're making serious accusations, Maria. Accusations that could get you in a lot of trouble." "I want to see my sister, now." "That's not going to happen." "Then I'm going to the police. I'm going to the FBI. I'm going to every news station in the state until someone listens to me." The woman pressed a button on her desk, and immediately the door behind Maria opened. More men entered, these ones bigger and more threatening than the previous group. Maria's heart pounded as she realized how badly she had miscalculated this entire situation. "You're not going anywhere," the woman said. "At least not yet." "You see, Maria, you've created a problem for me. You know too much." "You've seen too much. And you've been very vocal about your intentions to expose us." "I can't allow that. You can't keep me here. People know where I am." "Do they? Did you tell anyone you were coming to this warehouse tonight? Did you file a plan with a friend, leave a note for the authorities?" "No, I don't think you did. You came here alone, without backup, without telling anyone, just like your sister did." The full horror of the situation crashed down on Maria. She had been so focused on finding Carmen that she hadn't thought about her own safety. She had walked right into a trap, and now she was going to disappear just like her sister had. "What are you going to do with me?" Maria whispered. The woman smiled, and this time it was genuine, if horrifying. "That depends entirely on how cooperative you're willing to be. You see, we're always looking for new talent. You're attractive, educated, well-spoken. With the right training, you could be quite valuable to our organization. You're insane if you think I would ever work for you. Everyone has a breaking point, Maria. Everyone has something they'll do to survive. You might be surprised what you're capable of when given the proper motivation." Maria's hand moved to her pocket, to her phone. If she could just activate the emergency call feature, send out a distress signal, anything to let someone know where she was. But before she could reach it, one of the men grabbed her arm and twisted it behind her back. Pain shot through her shoulder as he pulled the phone from her pocket and handed it to the woman. The woman looked at the screen and her eyes widened. "You were recording this conversation. How very enterprising of you." She turned off the recording and slipped the phone into her desk drawer. "That won't be necessary anymore." "Let me go," Maria demanded, struggling against the man's grip. "You can't do this." "This is kidnapping. People will look for me. Will they? A single woman, no family besides a missing sister, living alone. It might be weeks before anyone notices you're gone. And by then, you'll be so far from here that it won't matter." The reality of what was happening finally broke through Maria's shock. She screamed, loud and desperate, hoping that someone, anyone, might hear. But the man holding her clamped a hand over her mouth, muffling the sound. She bit down hard, tasting blood, and he cursed and backhanded her across the face. Stars exploded across her vision. "Take her downstairs," the woman ordered. "Room 7. Make sure she's secured. I'll deal with her in the morning." They dragged Maria toward the door, and she fought every step of the way. She kicked, scratched, tried to break free, but there were too many of them and they were too strong. The hallway passed in a blur of concrete and shadows. Down the stairs, across the warehouse floor, toward those numbered doors she had seen earlier. Room 7 was small and windowless, with concrete walls and a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. There was a cot in one corner and a bucket in another, nothing else. They threw Maria inside and she hit the floor hard, scraping her palms on the rough concrete. "Someone will bring you food and water in a few hours," one of the men said from the doorway. "I suggest you use this time to think about your situation. Think about whether fighting is really worth it." The door slammed shut, and Maria heard the sound of multiple locks clicking into place. She was alone in the darkness, trapped in a nightmare she couldn't wake up from. For several minutes she just lay there on the cold floor, her body shaking with shock and fear. But then, slowly, the fear began to transform into something else. Anger, determination. They had taken her sister. They had taken her freedom. But they hadn't broken her spirit. Not yet. Maria pushed herself up to sitting and looked around the room more carefully. The walls were solid concrete. No windows, no obvious weaknesses. The door was heavy metal with no handle on this side. The ceiling was too high to reach, and even if she could, there was nothing up there but a light bulb and some exposed pipes. She was trapped. Completely and utterly trapped. But as she sat there in the dim light, Maria remembered something her father had told her when she was young. He had been in the military, served 2 tours overseas, and he always said that the most dangerous person in any situation was the one who had nothing left to lose. Maria had nothing left to lose now. They had taken everything, which meant she had no reason to hold back, no reason to play it safe. If she was going down, she was taking these monsters with her. She spent the next hour searching every inch of the room, looking for anything that could be used as a weapon or a tool. The cot had metal legs that might be removed. The bucket was plastic but had a metal handle. The light fixture might have something useful if she could reach it. As she worked, Maria's mind was already planning her next move. She needed to escape this room. She needed to find Carmen. And she needed to make sure that the people running this operation paid for what they had done. Hours passed. No one came with food or water. The warehouse outside her door was mostly silent, with only occasional footsteps or distant voices breaking the quiet. Maria tried to keep track of time, but without a phone or window, it was impossible. All she knew was that it felt like an eternity. Finally, she heard footsteps approaching her door. Multiple people, moving quickly. The locks clicked open, and the door swung wide. A different man stood there. Someone Maria hadn't seen before. He was older, with grey in his beard and hard eyes that had seen too much. "Get up," he said. "Boss wants to see you again." Maria stood slowly, her muscles stiff from hours on the concrete floor. "What time is it? Does it matter?" They led her back upstairs, back to the office where the blonde woman waited. But this time she wasn't alone. Sitting in one of the leather chairs was Richard Holloway himself, the city councilman Maria had followed from the warehouse. He looked at her with an expression of mild curiosity, like she was an interesting problem to be solved. "So this is the sister," he said. "She doesn't look like much trouble to me." "Appearances can be deceiving," the woman replied. "Maria here has been conducting surveillance on our operations. She's made threats about going to the authorities. And she's proven quite resistant to reason." Holloway stood up and walked over to Maria, circling her slowly. "Do you know who I am?" "Yes." "Then you understand that whatever you think you know about this place, whatever accusations you might want to make, they won't stick. I have friends. Important friends. People who won't appreciate a nobody teacher trying to cause trouble. I just want my sister back." "Your sister is exactly where she wants to be. She's making more money in a week than you make in a month. She's living well, eating well, being taken care of. Why would she want to go back to her old life? Not yours. Not this woman's. Hers. You really don't get it, do you? Your sister was drowning. We threw her a lifeline. She grabbed it. End of story. If that's true, let me talk to her. Let me hear it from Carmen herself." The blonde woman and Holloway exchanged glances. Some unspoken communication passed between them. Finally, Holloway nodded. "Fine," the woman said. "You want to see your sister? I'll arrange it. But understand this, Maria. If Carmen tells you she wants to stay, if she confirms everything we've told you, then you walk away. You forget about this place. You forget about us. You go back to your little life and never look back. Agreed. Maria's heart leaped. She was going to see Carmen. After 3 weeks of searching, of fear and uncertainty, she was finally going to see her sister. Agreed. Good. Tomorrow morning, we'll bring Carmen here. You can talk to her, satisfy yourself that she's safe and happy, and then this whole mess will be over. They took Maria back to room 7, but this time she didn't fight. Hope had reignited something inside her. Tomorrow she would see Carmen. Tomorrow she would know the truth. And whatever happened after that, at least she would know. She lay down on the cot and closed her eyes, trying to rest. Sleep was impossible, but she forced her body to relax, to conserve energy for whatever was coming. The night stretched on forever, each minute an eternity. And then, somewhere in the deepest part of darkness, Maria heard something that made her blood run cold. A scream. Female, terrified, cut short almost as soon as it began. It came from somewhere else in the building, from one of the other rooms along this hallway. Maria sat up, her heart racing. The scream came again, and this time she could make out words. Please! No! Please! Someone was being hurt. Right now, just a few doors away, someone was suffering, and Maria could do nothing but listen to it happen. The sounds continued for what felt like hours, crying, pleading, the thud of fists hitting flesh. And through it all, the cold realization that this was what this place really was. Not a high-end escort service, not a legitimate business. This was a prison, a torture chamber, a place where women were broken and sold. When morning finally came, Maria was no longer the same person who had knocked on the warehouse door the night before. The Maria who had been a teacher, who had graded papers and worried about lesson plans and lived a quiet, ordinary life, was gone. In her place was someone harder, someone angrier, someone who understood exactly what needed to be done. The door to room 7 opened, and the blonde woman stood there with 2 guards. "Time to see your sister," she said with a smile. Maria stood and walked toward the door, her face expressionless. But inside, her mind was working furiously, calculating distances and angles, looking for any opportunity, any chance to turn the tables on her captors. They led her back upstairs to the office. The door opened, and Maria's breath caught in her throat. Sitting in one of the leather chairs was Carmen, her sister, alive. But the woman in that chair looked nothing like the Carmen Maria remembered. Her hair was different, styled and colored a deep red. She wore expensive clothes and jewelry. Her makeup was perfect. But her eyes, those were what broke Maria's heart. They were empty, hollow, like someone had reached inside and scooped out everything that made Carmen who she was. "Carmen," Maria whispered. Her sister looked up slowly, and for a moment there was no recognition in her gaze. Then something flickered, a brief flash of the sister Maria knew, before it was buried again under whatever programming these monsters had done to her. "Hello, Maria," Carmen said. Her voice was flat, emotionless. "I hear you've been looking for me." Maria stared at her sister, searching for any sign of the person she used to know. Carmen sat perfectly still in the leather chair, her posture rigid, her hands folded in her lap like she was posing for a photograph. Everything about her seemed manufactured, from the way she held her head to the slight curve of her lips that wasn't quite a smile. "Carmen, it's me," Maria said, taking a step forward. One of the guards immediately moved to block her, but the blonde woman waved him back. "Let them talk," she said. "That's why we're all here." Maria approached slowly, afraid that moving too fast might shatter whatever fragile connection still existed between them. She pulled up a chair and sat down facing her sister, close enough to reach out and touch her if she wanted. But something stopped her, some instinct that told her Carmen might break if touched, like porcelain that had been glued back together too many times. "Been looking for you," Maria said softly, "for 3 weeks. Every day, I never gave up." Carmen's expression didn't change. "You shouldn't have come here. I had to. You're my sister. When you disappeared, when you didn't come home, I knew something was wrong. I knew you wouldn't just leave without telling me. Things change. People change. Not like this." Maria leaned forward, lowering her voice. "Carmen, whatever they've told you, whatever they've done to you, you don't have to stay here.
We can leave together. Right now.
I'll get you help. We'll figure this out." For the first time, a flicker of emotion crossed Carmen's face. Fear, Her eyes darted to the blonde woman standing by the desk, then back to Maria. I don't need help. I'm exactly where I want to be. No, you're not. I know you're not. This isn't you. You don't know anything about me anymore. Carmen's voice rose slightly, gaining an edge. You don't know what I've been through, what I needed. These people helped me when no one else would. What are you talking about? I would have helped you. If you were in trouble, all you had to do was call me. We could have worked through anything together. Carmen laughed, but it was a bitter, broken sound. Could we? Could we have worked through $80,000 in debt? Could we have worked through Nathan stealing every penny I had? Could we have worked through the eviction notice and the calls from collection agencies and the constant feeling of drowning? Yes, Maria said firmly. Yes, we could have. We're family. That's what family does. Family. Carmen shook her head. You were so busy with your perfect little life, your teaching job, your nice apartment. You never noticed that I was falling apart. You never asked if I needed help. The words hit Maria like a punch to the gut. That's not fair. You never told me any of this was happening. Because I was ashamed. Because I didn't want you to look at me the way you're looking at me now, like I'm broken, like I'm something to be fixed. I don't think you're broken, Carmen. I think you're hurt, and I think these people are taking advantage of that. The blonde woman chose that moment to interrupt. I think what Carmen is trying to tell you, Maria, is that she made an informed choice. She wasn't coerced or forced. She saw an opportunity to improve her situation, and she took it. That's not a crime. Maria turned to face the woman, her anger rising. Don't act like you're some kind of savior. I heard the screaming last night. I heard someone being hurt in one of those rooms down the hall. This isn't about helping people. This is about exploitation. Those are two very different things, the woman said coolly. Sometimes our girls need discipline. Sometimes they make mistakes and have to face consequences. That's no different than any other job. Getting beaten isn't a consequence of a normal job. No one was beaten. You heard someone receiving correction for breaking the rules. She stole from a client. She endangered herself and others. Actions have consequences. Maria looked back at her sister. Is that what they do to you? If you step out of line, do they hurt you? They've never hurt me. Then why do you look so scared right now? Why are you sitting there like a robot saying exactly what they want you to say? I'm not. Yes, you are. Maria stood up, her voice breaking. You're terrified. I can see it in your eyes. Whatever they've done to you, whatever they've told you, it's not true. You don't owe them anything. You don't have to stay here. Carmen stood as well, and for a moment the sisters faced each other. Then Carmen did something that shocked everyone in the room. She reached out and grabbed Maria's hand, squeezing it tightly. Her voice dropped to barely a whisper. They're always watching, she said, even when you can't see them. Even when you think you're alone, they know everything. They hear everything. If I try to leave, they'll find me, and they'll hurt the people I care about. Before Maria could respond, Carmen released her hand and stepped back, her face smoothing back into that blank mask. I'm happy here, she said loudly, clearly. This is my choice. You need to respect that and leave me alone. The blonde woman smiled triumphantly. There, you've heard it from Carmen herself. She's staying. So now it's time for you to uphold your end of the bargain. You walk away. You forget about us. You forget about us. Maria's mind raced. In that brief moment of connection, Carmen had told her everything she needed to know. This wasn't a willing choice. These people had threatened her, manipulated her, turned her into a prisoner who was too afraid to escape. And now they expected Maria to just walk away and leave her sister in this hell. I can't do that, Maria said quietly. The woman's smile faded. Excuse me? I said I can't do that. I can't leave my sister here. I don't care what you've threatened her with. I don't care how many powerful friends you have. I'm not leaving without her. Then you're a fool. The woman nodded to the guards. Take her back to her room. We'll have to find another solution to this problem. As the guards moved toward her, Maria made a decision. She had tried doing things the right way. She had tried to be smart, to gather evidence, to work within the system. But the system was rigged. The people who ran this place had too much power, too much influence. The only way to beat them was to stop playing by their rules. Maria's hand shot out and grabbed a heavy glass paperweight from the desk. Before anyone could react, she hurled it at the window behind the blonde woman. The glass shattered with a tremendous crash, and suddenly cold morning air was rushing into the office. "Run!" Maria screamed at Carmen. "Jump! Get out of here!" For a split second, Carmen didn't move. Then something in her seemed to wake up, some buried spark of the person she used to be. She turned and ran for the broken window. One of the guards tried to grab her, but Carmen was faster. She reached the window and looked back at Maria one last time. "I'm sorry," she said, and then she jumped. They were only on the second floor, maybe 15 feet up. Carmen hit the ground outside and rolled, then scrambled to her feet and started running. Alarms began blaring throughout the building. Shouts echoed from downstairs. The entire operation was suddenly in chaos. The blonde woman's face twisted with rage. "Get her!" she screamed. "Both of them! Now!" The guards converged on Maria. But she wasn't done fighting. She grabbed another object from the desk, a heavy metal bookend, and swung it at the nearest man. It connected with his temple and he went down. The second guard tackled her, driving her to the floor. But Maria kneed him in the groin and he rolled off, gasping. She scrambled toward the broken window, knowing she had seconds at best before more guards arrived. Her hands closed on the window frame and she started to pull herself up when a hand grabbed her ankle and yanked her back. She fell hard, the impact driving the air from her lungs. Richard Holloway stood over her, his face red with fury. "You stupid bitch. Do you have any idea what you've done?" Maria tried to kick free, but he was stronger than he looked. He dragged her away from the window, toward the door where more men were pouring in. She fought every inch of the way, scratching and biting and screaming. But there were too many of them. They forced her arms behind her back and zip-tied her wrists. Someone hit her across the face, splitting her lip. The taste of blood filled her mouth. Through her blurred vision, she could see the blonde woman on her phone barking orders. "Lock down the building. Send teams to sweep the area. The other one can't have gotten far. And someone deal with this one permanently." The words sent a chill down Maria's spine. Permanently. They were going to kill her. She had known it might come to this, had accepted the risk when she threw that paperweight, but actually hearing the words made it real in a way that terror couldn't quite capture. They dragged her out of the office and down the stairs, but instead of taking her back to room 7, they headed toward a different part of the warehouse, a section she hadn't seen before. The walls here were older, the concrete stained with dark patches that could have been water damage or could have been something much worse. They threw her into a room at the end of the hall. This one was different from her previous cell. There was a drain in the center of the floor. The walls were lined with plastic sheeting. A single metal chair sat bolted to the concrete. Maria knew what this room was for. People who entered here didn't leave. This was where they cleaned up their mistakes, where they made problems disappear. The men secured her to the chair, adding more zip ties around her ankles. Then they left without a word, the door slamming shut behind them. Maria was alone in the killing room, waiting for her execution. Time passed in a strange fog. Maria's mind felt disconnected from her body, floating somewhere above the horror of her situation. She thought about Carmen, hoping her sister had gotten away, hoping she had found somewhere safe to hide. Even if Maria didn't make it out of here, at least Carmen would have a chance. She thought about her students, wondering if they would miss her. About her apartment with its half-graded papers still sitting on the kitchen table. About all the things she would never get to do, places she would never see, experiences she would never have. But mostly, she thought about her father. He had died 5 years ago from cancer, but his lessons had stayed with her. Never give up. Never stop fighting. Be brave even when you're terrified. She had tried to live by those words, and now, facing death, she found comfort in knowing she had fought to the very end. The door opened, and the blonde woman walked in, followed by 2 men Maria hadn't seen before. They were larger than the regular guards, with dead eyes and hands that bore the scars of violence. Professional killers, she realized. People who did this for a living. "This is unfortunate," the woman said, pulling up a chair and sitting down across from Maria. "I actually liked you. You're smart, determined, loyal to your family. Under different circumstances, we might have worked well together." "Go to hell," Maria said. The woman smiled sadly. "Your sister got away, you know." We had teams out looking for her, but she vanished. Probably found a phone, called for help. By now, she's likely talking to the police, which means we have a limited window to deal with you and clear out this facility. You won't get away with this. Even if you kill me, Carmen knows everything. She'll tell them what you've done. Will she? Carmen has been here for 3 weeks. She's participated in illegal activities. She's taken money for those activities. The police will see her as a criminal, not a victim. And with you gone, there's no one to corroborate her story. It becomes her word against ours, and we have much better lawyers. Maria saw the logic in it and felt her hope starting to crumble. The woman was right. Without evidence, without a body, Carmen's testimony wouldn't be enough. These people would walk away clean and set up shop somewhere else. However, the woman continued, there might be a way for you to survive this. One option that benefits both of us. What are you talking about? Work for us. Not in the same capacity as your sister, of course. You're too old for that. But we could use someone with your intelligence. Someone to help recruit new girls, to handle communications, to be the face of legitimacy for our operation. You'd be well paid, protected, given a new identity, and you'd get to see Carmen regularly, make sure she stays safe. You want me to help you trap other women? To become like you? I want you to survive. Everything else is just details. Maria looked into the woman's eyes and saw nothing human there. No empathy, no conscience, just cold calculation. This was someone who had made peace with being a monster long ago. No, Maria said. I'd rather die. The woman sighed and stood up. That's what I expected you'd say. Shame. You could have been useful. She nodded to the 2 men. Make it quick, and make sure there's nothing left to find. The men moved forward, and Maria closed her eyes. This was it, the end. She had failed to save Carmen, failed to stop these people, failed at everything. But at least she had tried. At least she had fought. Then the world exploded in sound. 3 gunshots so loud in the confined space that they seemed to shatter the air itself. Maria's eyes snapped open, expecting to feel pain, to see her own blood. But she was untouched. The 2 men who had been moving toward her were on the ground, not moving. And standing in the doorway with a gun in her hands was Carmen. Her sister looked nothing like the broken shell who had sat in that office chair an hour ago. Her face was set in grim determination, her hands steady despite the weapon she held. Behind her stood 2 police officers in tactical gear, their own weapons drawn and pointed at the blonde woman. Get on the ground, one of the officers shouted. Hands behind your head. Now. The blonde woman's face went white. She started to reach for something in her jacket, but the second officer fired a shot into the ceiling. Don't even think about it! More police poured into the room, swarming the building. The sounds of doors being kicked in and people shouting echoed through the warehouse. Within seconds, the woman was on the ground in handcuffs, and officers were cutting the zip ties holding Maria to the chair. Carmen dropped the gun and ran to her sister, throwing her arms around her. Both women collapsed to the floor together, holding each other and crying. Maria couldn't speak, couldn't think, could only hold on to Carmen like she was the only real thing in the world. I'm sorry, Carmen sobbed. I'm so sorry I didn't tell you. I was so scared. They said they would hurt you if I tried to leave. They said they'd kill you. It's okay, Maria whispered. It's over. We're both safe now. One of the police officers knelt beside them. He was older, with kind eyes and a gentle voice. We need to get you both out of here. Can you walk? Maria nodded and stood on shaky legs. Carmen supported her as they made their way out of the killing room, through the warehouse and finally outside into the morning light. Police cars filled the street, their lights flashing red and blue against the grey sky. Paramedics rushed over with blankets and medical kits. As Maria sat in the back of an ambulance being checked over, she watched the police lead a stream of women out of the warehouse. Some looked dazed, others relieved, a few were crying. Each one represented a life that had been stolen and controlled by the monsters who ran this place. Each one was now getting a chance at freedom. Carmen sat beside her, wrapped in her own blanket, giving her statement to a detective. She explained how she had escaped through the window, run to a nearby gas station and called 911. She told them about the trafficking operation, about the clients, about everything she had witnessed during her 3 weeks in captivity. The detective listened carefully, taking notes, his expression growing darker with every detail. Later, much later, after they had given their statements and been cleared by the paramedics, the 2 sisters sat together in Maria's car. The sun was fully up now, a clear winter morning with frost still clinging to the windows. Neither of them spoke for a long time.
"They're saying Richard Holloway killed himself when the police showed up at his house," Carmen finally said. "Shot himself before they could arrest him."
Good, Maria said.
She knew she should feel something about a man dying, but she couldn't find any sympathy for him. There were 12 other girls in that building, 12 women who thought they were applying for legitimate jobs and ended up trapped. One of them was only 17. She'd been there for 6 months. Jesus. The detective said the blonde woman's real name is Veronica Marsh. She's been running these operations for almost a decade, moving from city to city. This is the first time anyone's ever gotten evidence solid enough to make charges stick. Maria turned to look at her sister. How did you know to bring the police to that specific room? How did you know that's where they'd take me? Carmen's face darkened. Because that's where they took other women who tried to escape. I heard the stories. The other girls would whisper about it late at night, about the room at the end of the hall where people went and never came back. When I got away and talked to the police, I begged them to hurry. I was so afraid we'd be too late. But we weren't. You saved me. You saved me first. You never stopped looking. Even when everyone else had given up, you kept searching. You risked everything to find me. Maria reached out and took her sister's hand. That's what family does. We don't give up on each other. Ever. They sat together in silence for a while longer, watching as more police vehicles arrived and more women were led out of the warehouse to safety. The building that had been a prison was now a crime scene, its secrets finally exposed to the light. What happens now? Carmen asked quietly. Now we heal, Maria said. We get you into therapy. We work through this together. And we make sure those monsters never hurt anyone else again. I have to testify. The detective said the trial will probably last months. I'll have to tell everything. In public, in front of a jury. I'll be there with you. Every single day. Whatever you need, however long it takes. Carmen leaned her head on Maria's shoulder. I was so stupid. I should have told you about Nathan. About the money problems. About everything. If I had just asked for help. Stop! This wasn't your fault. They're predators. They look for vulnerable people and they exploit them. You were in trouble and they took advantage. That's on them, not you. I just feel so ashamed. The things they made me do, the things I had to do to survive in there, you survived. That's what matters. You're strong, Carmen. Stronger than you know. You made it through hell and came back. A lot of people wouldn't have been able to do that. The detective who had taken Carmen's statement walked over to the car and tapped on the window. Maria rolled it down. Just wanted to let you both know, he said. We've made 17 arrests so far. 4 more women have been located at other properties connected to this operation. And we've seized financial records that are going to lead us to dozens of clients and accomplices. This is going to be a major prosecution. Your testimony is going to be crucial. We'll do whatever we need to do, Maria said. I know this has been traumatic for both of you. We have resources available, counselors who specialize in this kind of trauma. I'd strongly encourage you to reach out to them. We will. Thank you. The detective nodded and walked away. Maria started the car and pulled out onto the street, leaving the warehouse behind. In her rearview mirror, she could see it shrinking into the distance, becoming smaller and less significant with every passing second. They drove through the quiet morning streets of Millbrook, a town that would never look the same to Maria again. She had lived here her whole life, taught in the schools, shopped in the stores, walked these sidewalks 1,000 times. But now she knew what lurked beneath the surface, what evil could hide behind normal facades. Where are we going? Carmen asked. Home, my apartment. You're staying with me until we figure out what comes next. I don't want to be alone. You won't be, I promise. When they reached Maria's building, she helped Carmen up the stairs and into the familiar comfort of the apartment. Everything was exactly as Maria had left it the night before, back when the world had been different. The half-graded papers were still on the kitchen table. The coffee mug she had left in the sink was still there. It seemed impossible that only 12 hours had passed since she had knocked on that warehouse door. Carmen collapsed on the couch, exhausted. Maria brought her water and a blanket, then sat beside her. For a long time they just sat together, drawing comfort from each other's presence. I keep thinking about the other women, Carmen said. The ones who are still out there, still trapped in places like that warehouse. How many of them are there? How many people are suffering right now while no one looks for them? But we're going to do something about it. After this trial, after we've testified and helped put these people away, we're going to make sure the world knows what's happening. We're going to fight to shut down every operation like this one. How? We're just two people. Two people who survived something terrible. Two people who have a story that needs to be heard. Sometimes that's enough to start a change. Carmen was quiet for a moment. I want to do that. I want to make sure no one else goes through what I went through. But I'm scared, Maria. I'm so scared of what comes next. I know, I'm scared too, but we'll face it together. You and me. Sisters, Carmen repeated. And for the first time since Maria had found her, she smiled. It was a small smile, fragile and uncertain, but it was real. Over the following weeks and months, that smile would grow stronger. Carmen would start therapy and begin the long process of healing. She would testify in court, facing her abusers and telling her truth to the world. She would help bring down an entire criminal network that had operated in the shadows for years, and she would slowly, painfully reclaim the life that had been stolen from her. Maria would be there every step of the way, supporting her sister, fighting alongside her, refusing to let the darkness win. Together, they would become advocates for other survivors, speaking at conferences and schools, raising awareness about human trafficking and exploitation. They would turn their trauma into purpose, their pain into power. The warehouse would be torn down a year later, replaced by a community center that provided resources for trafficking survivors. A plaque on the front wall bore the names of the women who had been rescued that morning, including Carmen Santos. It served as a reminder that evil could be defeated, that light could pierce even the darkest shadows. But on this morning, as the sun rose higher in the sky and the nightmare finally began to fade, Maria and Carmen simply held each other close. Two sisters who had walked through hell and made it back. Two survivors who had fought for each other when the world tried to tear them apart. And in that moment, wrapped in blankets on an old couch in a modest apartment, they were finally safe, finally home, finally free.